So let's go around, do some quick introductions again, make sure we all know who's in the room, and we will go from there. So once again, good morning, brothers. Lloyd Banks, one of the chairs for this Detroit think tank for the Made Man Foundation. Excited to be here, run a company called Banks & Company. We're a public affairs firm, and I'll turn it to Councilman Sherrod.
Well, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone enjoying their morning so far. I know everybody just got up. I'm Councilman Sherrod of the City of course. Just wanted to introduce myself to everyone.
Mike Randall.
Good morning, brethren. Michael Randall. I currently serve as Director of Community Impact for the American Heart Association. I also do some videography and photography on the side. That's how Lloyd Banks and I met, and he was gracious enough to send me this invitation. I had a great conversation last week, looking for part 2. So good morning all, and thank you for allowing me to join.
And then I'm sorry, I should have went to my fellow chair, Kindle.
Oh no, you saved the best for last. Kindle Akinyemi, President and CEO.
Love working with a Kindle.
Hey, Akindele Akinyemi, President and CEO, Global African Business Association, National Political Director for the Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee.
Okay, Councilman Chisholm.
Councilman Stephen Chisholm from the City of Inkster, and also Director of Constituent Services for State Representative Jewel Jones.
Great. Eric Foster.
Eric Foster works with Lloyd Banks, with Banks & Company, and also, separate of that, member of the State of Michigan's Racial Equity Work Group under the Michigan Marijuana Regulatory Agency.
Twan Murphy.
Good morning, gentlemen. This is Twan Murphy. Company is Critical Connections Group. Currently doing a project with NAACP as the Michigan State Coordinator of Civic Engagement. And also from time to time, work for Banks & Company.
I think
and I see.
I think from time to time we all do, Twan.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know how it happens, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Dr. Hudson, I see you in the car, man.
Yes, sir. Good morning, brothers. Truman Hudson Jr., lecturer at Wayne State University, also contract manager in the School of Medicine doing research on Black men and cancer. And I'm a community builder and looking forward to the conversation.
Good deal. Mayo McKinday.
Yeah, how y'all doing? Mayo McKinday. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I frequent Detroit a lot, so I'm the one that's a little bit from Buckeye State here. So I'm a businessman, and that's why I met Lloyd. And y'all say y'all work for the company. I've been with the company and almost been partners with the company several times. So and plan to be partner with the company in the future. I guess I've worn many political hats in my life. The biggest one I have right now is I'm the 4th District Chair for Mega Sci-Fi's Voter Registration Education Mobilization Committee.
Good deal. Thank you, sir. Bill Luce.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Bill Luce, retired IBM executive, former past president of the 100 Black Men of Greater Detroit.
Good deal. Thank you again, brothers, for joining us. We're just missing one person at 8 o'clock in the morning. I love it. So we're gonna, Kendall, if you don't mind, normally we do a few announcements, but this is so fitting with the whole part 2 discussion of voting. We did have some, a decision made, and I forget again which court, about our Secretary of State and what she and her position on open carry going into the election or going into the polls. And so Twan Murphy and the NAACP is having a discussion about that. And so Kendall, if you don't mind, I'm gonna have Twan make that announcement, talk about that, and that should lead right into our discussion that Kendall will help lead for us.
Thanks, Lloyd, for yielding the floor over for this very important information. At that particular point, I'll put my other cap on. Put my other cap on, as you see there. But tonight, and Lloyd's going to get the blast out. I sent the information over to him so he can make sure he gets to all your respective emails and phone numbers. But we're having a call from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Where we're going to have on the line Assistant Secretary of State Hester Wheeler, along with Kalila Spencer, who's doing election protection with a band of probably over 100 attorneys now this election season, to talk about what took place in the Sixth Circuit Court, where they turned down Secretary Benson's request not to have open carry at the polls. And also, if you can do it at the polls and they see that folks are continue to early vote, they're talking about going to the drop boxes and things like that, having the assault rifles and things like that for these intimidation practices. So this call is a multiracial call. There'll be several groups from our Arab and Asian and a multitude of groups that are coming together. It's not a long call. The informational part is very short, and we've thrown some giveaways in it. We'll be giving out 10 gift cards. So if you get this, flush this out to your networks, there'll be some fun, but more importantly, the information that people need to know, the do's and the don'ts, so they don't get caught up in somebody's in their face with a gun, they react, and then they end up getting hauled off and can't even vote. So that's going to be a good piece. I also want to lift up real quick while I have the floor. If anybody's organizations are interested in election protection training, it's a more detailed training, who wants to be at the polls, wants to be credentialed to be able to challenge. I'll send that information to Lloyd too, but this Friday and Sunday, we're doing election protection training that can get people credentialed. It's the same training taking place on 2 days, but I will lift that information up so that you have it. Please join. It's open if you want to do that. And then finally, as I get ready to yield back over, if anybody has lit drops that they want to do, we have plenty of lit that is nonpartisan. It's talking about voting. It's phrased Black the Vote. We have kicker cards that we've been doing non-contact right on the cars. We have door hangers that we've just been throwing either on a person's porch, or if we can get on the door or hang it on the gate. And then we also have this very important piece, which is called Know Your Voting Rights, which has all of the information that you need to know about voting. This has been very, very helpful for our young community in our non-propensity voting areas, where folks think, hey man, I might have had some legal trouble, been incarcerated, and I can't vote. In Michigan, that's not the case. Certain states do that, but this guide right here is a great piece to keep not only through this during this process, but through this process. And if you have any questions, my email is on the trail. You guys can reach out to me, but just let me know how I can serve and help as we get round this corner to, in my eyes, 6 days to election day.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Brother Murphy. I'll turn it over to Kendall. I think that's even a good place to start with the thoughts around, what happened with Secretary Benson. But I'll turn it over to Kendall. He's great at these kind of discussions.
Thank you very much, Lloyd, and greetings to all our brothers here on this conference call. Thank you for being with us early in the morning. We'll jump right into the discussion. You're right. 6 days left to elections, and already we are seeing what they call judges who act like activists overturning certain measures to keep people safe. But I just want to hear from you this morning. What's your thoughts on that? I'm gonna start with Ecorse City Councilman Devontae Sherrod. We got people who are going to go vote November 3rd. Because they're going to actually get out and vote. I mean, with this measure being taken place, what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is that I think it's important that we must continue to reach out to the people in the community and ask them to make sure they get out and vote early. Some of them voting early absentee, and some of them voting, saying they're gonna go to the polls. But I think it's important for us to come to the polls too, to make sure that we get out and vote, because this vote is so important. And I take this very serious. Some people say, well, I'm not gonna vote, I don't know who I'm gonna vote for. But it's so important to get out and vote, because this election matters to the President of the United States, not just only the president, but through the city council, the mayors, and all that in different cities. That's my take on that.
Mr. Randall, I got a question for you. Over 60 million people have voted here in the United States. Question, hey, you know, we have folks that want to bring weapons. They want to have folks that bring weapons to the table or to the polls. Should we as voters bring our guns as well to defend ourselves? What's your thoughts on that?
You know, I'm gonna quote the brother Charlemagne the God. A black man with a legal firearm is a form of self-care and self-love. So I do believe that, you know, if you are a registered owner of a pistol, you should absolutely exercise your right. That the jurisprudence that was used by that judge covers everyone, not only the people who wish to intimidate would-be voters, but people who are going to the vote to polls to exercise their right. So I think that absolutely, if that is your if you have a registered firearm and you have a license to carry, that is something that you should exercise.
All right. So what about you're right, and I agree with you 100% with that. I just feel that, you know, we're going to have people who are voting for the first time, you know, getting out the vote. We have a lot of young people that are voting, already have voted in mass numbers. We see that. You know, one of the things that people have concerns about, not just with the voting process, but also the trust process, especially when you have people with open carry, like the Boogaloo Boys or the Proud Boys or whatever they call themselves, Wolverine Watchmen, whatever they call themselves. They have these, you know, open carry, and they walk around with AR-15s and all this nonsense. But there's another factor in this that we barely talk about, and that is law enforcement, of how some of these police officers and sheriffs are giving pounds to these Proud Boys and Boogaloo Boys and all this stuff. I mean, is that positive? Is that what should happen in that regards? I'm going to go to Mr. Chisholm, Councilman Chisholm. What do you think about that?
You know, that really is a hard pill to swallow, because the way you look at it is they're serving two masters, and they're serving that particular group that looks to intimidate and terrorize, domestic terrorism, if you will, their own people that they've sworn to protect and serve. And that's just, I can't even see that happening in my community. Of course, it's predominantly African American. So of course, that's something that you really not gonna see like that. You may have some officers speak on those particular matters, and you kind of be shaky about what they say and if they really would associate with them or not. But we have to reprimand our police who honor and who engage in that type of rhetoric. Because if we don't stop it in the positions that we hold, like myself and Councilman Sherrod and others who have, you know, some influence, if you will, with city government, local government, county government, things of that nature, it'll continue, and it'll happen before our eyes, and it'll be a thing of reality, or I can't even think of the word right now, but it'll be happening more so than we want it to, and we won't be able to stop it. Kind of like right now with people saying we got to police our police. Well, where do we start at with police and our police when they're already so entangled and intertwined like a cancer that we need to cut out? But if you cut out too much of it, you damage the entire community overall.
All right. And going to Brother Mayo, you know, police brutality is a major issue in our community, has been for quite some time, but it's escalated with this president being in office for the past 4 years. You saw this with George Floyd. You saw this with Breonna Taylor. You saw this with Mr. Aubrey down in Georgia. There's some other incidents that have taken place, Black Lives Matter and all this. My question to you, my friend, is with all the police brutality that's going on and all these things, what type of police reforms should we be looking at as a community?
Really, it's something that is in the culture of the United States. I think we've heard the history so many times about how policing started with slave owners trying to catch the slaves, or the idea of trying to chase down black people, and that's when they didn't really respect us as people, and some you can say some still don't right now. So I think that for someone who was an activist who ended up working at the sheriff's office here in Franklin County, my perspective has been so deep because I've sat in that jail because you have to work in jail 3 years before you got on the streets. So I've sat in that jail many times and heard the thug, that's the new N word. I've heard him call our brothers and sister thugs, and just the mindset they have. I've been in roll call before. We go into roll call before we start our shift, and just hearing the lieutenant or the sergeant talking about protecting yourself from those thugs. 'Cause this was actually funny. This is when Barack Obama, not funny, but ironic, when President Obama was in office, and this is when Trayvon Martin happened, and Philando Castile, and all those things were happening, and their sentiment was that like be careful when you go home because of those thugs. They're gonna they're gonna be trying to kill you, and they're gonna try to harm you. And the sense that I got was the people that I was working with were not protecting the red, white, and blue. They were only protecting the blue out of the red, white, and blue. And we got to find a way to speak to our police force, especially our council members like Brother Chisholm and Brother Sherrod. And I mean, I know you guys are, and we got to find a way to continue to go into those offices if we're allowed to. Yeah, you guys are city council members. Talk to your mayors if you can take a day or two to go speak to the police unit and remind them. They swore to oath to serve the red, white, and blue, not just the blue band. So I mean, so that's the biggest thing. I think the culture has to change. They got to understand that they're in there for service, not to do like some club type activity.
All right. Mr. Dr. Truman, question real quick. We talk about health disparities in our community. We talk about police brutality. We talk about all these things, but health disparities is one of the major components in our community that we face. We're talking about ACA, Affordable Care Act, in terms of Obamacare. Now the U.S. Senate have confirmed a brand new justice to the U.S. Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett, which threatens the ACA if it's repealed. What would be the devastating effects for Black men if the ACA is repealed, in your opinion?
Before answering that question, I want to also address the comment around addressing police reform.
Okay.
I think police reform is one of the best strategies for addressing police reform is through policy.
Okay.
And when we address it through policy, that's putting the right people in office and holding those people accountable to the policy. And in shaping the policy, I think the policy should also be framed through a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. If we make sure that DEI is at the forefront of policing, then it will be a part of the fabric of what police should do, because it becomes a metric that you should be trying to measure. Building on that framework around DEI, I think as it relates to health, it's going to be catastrophic, the number of people who are going to be impacted if the ACA is repealed and not replaced with something that can support not just Black men, but people in America in general, because there are over 20 million people from various disparate populations that are actually participating in the ACA program. So our aim would be to really build coalitions with people across various sectors to engage them around policy reform discussions that would lead to more equitable healthcare solutions. And I think healthcare solutions may not necessarily have to come from the federal level. There are things that we can do on the local level in partnership with our various healthcare systems and holding them accountable, because many of our healthcare systems are nonprofit. Several of our healthcare systems are nonprofit corporations. And because they're nonprofit corporations, they have a public mission. And with their public mission, I believe as the council members that we have here are representing their various communities, they can hold those individuals accountable to the tenets of what public entities should do. Now, when you get into Tenet Health, which is a for-profit entity, that's a little different. But even with what Tenet has with DMC, Detroit Medical Center, DMC has a nonprofit charitable position that they have to carry out various public aims. So I believe that while healthcare may turn, we may have a downturn in healthcare solutions short term. I believe the long-term options are to really leverage the capital of policymakers, the people on the ground, and being able to connect with holding those charitable entities, i.e. the 501c health systems accountable for their public mission.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to come to Mr. Murphy. What is the NAACP from your perspective, you know, with the confirmation of Justice Barrett and the threat of the ACA being repealed by this administration? Is the NAACP, have they made, I want to say make a statement, but what kind of next action steps is the NAACP going to take on that?
So to put that, you know, directly, the NAACP is in daily litigations with that and a whole host of other issues. I kind of want to circle around and wrap around everything that's been lifted up. Let me start by saying that this administration that's in office, over 250 federal judges appointed. So we talk about the Supreme Court. That's really, it's on everybody's eyes because it's been on TV, but that's light work. Over 250 federal judges appointed by this administration. Not one Black, not one Asian, not one Native Indian. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with decades of a court system locally and across this country that's going to be slated against our communities. When we look at right now, we talk about Election Day on November 3rd. The Election Day is right now. Technically, we're probably at noon or 1 o'clock on Election Day because the voting is happening. The answer in this moment right now is early voting. The answer prior to this moment was absentee. When you did your absentee, you already had the process in place, so you didn't get accosted with the Proud Boys and all those sort of different things because you were able to just be able to put that in the mail or take it to the drop box. Now that we're in early voting, you go to your clerk's office and you provide your proper ID, you get your ballot, you vote, it goes in. We're trying to avoid folks having to show up on Election Day to potentially meet these tsunamis, because when we heard earlier say, yeah, if you got a right to carry, you got a right to carry. Absolutely. If you've done the laws and you've got the license to do it, absolutely. But the folks that are coming out to agitate. So you take Pookie or you take a first-time voter. My daughter's a first-time voter, so she's already anxious about the process. And now you take a Proud Boy or somebody coming up to her with an assault rifle, telling her, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that. You're at the wrong polls. Anything. So we have to make sure that we're looking at the totality of what's taking place. And then when we talked about the policing, and you talked about the hand bumping with the Proud Boys and the other different factions and things like that, we can't lose sight that if we go back and look at the history of the Ku Klux Klan, these folks who are in the ranks of the police and many other places are the Proud Boys, are the Ku Klux Klan. So they're not just bumping and saying that, hey, I'm in alliance with you. I'm one of you. So a lot of times we hear the soundbite of NAACP where it talks about, and it's just, outside the NAACP too, whatever hat you wear on, where it talks about the fact that, you know, the policing is broken. The system is not broken. The system is not forced. So whether you go to the Constitution, whether you go to what the policing laws were set up, they're not forced. If you want to see the prison system, how it was set up, that was forced. So we got to go and I'm not about abolish the police, but I'm a little deeper than let's just reform it, because it does not see us in there. And we can just look at examples of, it was already lifted up, Philando Castilla, Eric Gardner, Alton Sterling, Breonna Taylor, 32 shots fired blindly in an apartment with no notice in the middle of the night that you're even the police. And then we're starting to just have no real, you know, angst about us, about the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that we watched the knee on Floyd's neck. So we got to get that energy and understand that right now in this moment, what's on the line, all these questions you ask, I go through it every day. Voting rights on the line, healthcare on the line, income equality on the line, law and order policing on the line, education on the line, the courts, women's rights. We're at a tipping point that everything we talk about is not just a discussion, it's on the line to be catastrophic, like a tsunami coming in each one of these areas. So if we don't get out, because the black vote in 2020 is going to directly affect what happens in this vote. Directly, the black vote. And I'm telling you, I'm hitting barbershops and things like that in this COVID piece, and I'm running across folks that are like, I don't like Trump, not really feeling Joe. I kind of was a Bernie guy, even though he was old, but I'm not voting. So we're seeing a lot of energy, but we still seeing a lot of people that's talking about they're not voting. So we still got work to do in our own communities. And in our close, Truman hit it right on the head. It's one thing to vote, or no, one thing to get in the game, to get registered, right? Then to get educated, get the awareness so that you can vote the right people that Truman is talking about when he's talking about affecting the policy. You got to have the right people in there. But then when you put that pressure on the policy, that's what's going to change, because we're playing a poor man's game of checkers while they're playing a chess game at whatever level you call it, where they got to have the time clock, where they're making a move and you got to do it in a time clock. That's what's happening in the courts daily. And Lloyd will tell you, when we go to DC and we go to Lansing, Eric will tell you also, and we sit in those committee meetings, we sit in those hearings, there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's open season. Imagine if you did your jobs every day and nobody was there. There was no real accountability. So that's what we're facing is the black man has to start to stand up. The black organizations have to stand up, and we have to do more than just shouting in the street. We got to move to actions that are going to shape policy, but hold people's feet to the fire.
That's very powerful. And speaking of Eric Foster, I just want to ask Eric Foster a question, because he's been in this game a long time. When you hear these young adults out here, millennials and Gen Zs, who are out here protesting, whether it's Black Lives Matter or other, and they talk about abolish the police, what's your thoughts on that? Should we abolish the police? Should we move funding from the police for community development? What's your thoughts on that from your perspective?
So I'm gonna hit on that and a couple other points, because I've been waiting and I love the flow of the conversation, but damn it, I got stuff to say.
All right.
Here's the first thing. So the first thing is, with respect to that, I'm in the framework that we need to do a significant level of reforms to policing. Qualified immunity laws need to go. Also, law enforcement bill of rights need to go, because those are things that put an extra level of protection and lack of accountability built in to the structure. Now, if you are and we have to call this what it is, radical Trump white supremacist terrorism. And if you are a radical Trump white supremacist terrorist and you don't want to comply with laws as an officer that make you accountable to the system, that you can be fired, that you can be disciplined, that your records can be public, then go find another job. There's places that'll hire radical white supremacist terrorists. Go find another job, other employment, and let's hire people who want to be accountable. There are millions of people, Black, white, Latino, others, who, if given that opportunity with proper pay and training, would not mind doing it, but also with the fact that I'm going to be accountable if I mess up. So those are the people. Repeal the radical white supremacist terrorist cops and replace with police who want to be accountable. And even framing of the naming, instead of we have struggled with the conversation of defund the police. It never should have been defund. What it needs to be is something like make police accountable again, MAPA. Sometimes framing is how you end up winning or losing battles. Now, to a few other points. Court reform. We're going to have to, on a federal level, with a Democratic Congress. I love the filibuster, but it's got to go in this framework, because we need to expand the number of district level judges, the number of circuit court judges, Court of Appeal judges, and lastly, Supreme Court judges, period. and get through judges who look like America and who come from the mainstream of thinking of America. In the past 20 years, when you look at the totality of votes cast, Democrat and Republican, for at a state level as well as on the federal level, Democrats are the majority with then third party and independent voters. It's an overwhelming majority. On average, 54% of the voters are in Democrat and third party voting columns, and only 46% are in Republican columns, even in presidential elections. So the court system on a federal level does not reflect that with what we have with Trump, who is the leader of the radical white supremacist terrorists. That being said, we need to expand that. And because there is no diversity that exists there, Trump's administration, his DOJ officers, his ambassadors, judges, even his cabinet averages 93% white and 91% male. That's not America. And so those are some things. Then in terms of who we vote for on a state level, we've got to get, when it comes to voting, these state offices are critical because we need to repeal these open carry laws. There is no need. The Second Amendment in the Constitution has nothing to do, the perversion of it through the Heller ruling has nothing to do with your ability to form your own private militia. A militia, as defined by the Constitution, is the National Guard that operates under a governor's charge, or in cases of territories, the governor or leader of that particular territory, not this other stuff. We need to rein that in and put it back in its place where it needs to be. When the courts make decisions that we allow to stand as law, like Heller, Obergefell, Roe v. Wade, etc., and we don't actually enact laws, that creates the opportunity for people to take that crevice and go buck wild crazy, and that's what they're doing. And then in terms of the dynamic of voting and the folks that say, why should I vote? What's the purpose? Do I need to participate? Here's where it really is. If you are African American, you're in a situation where right now you have a man who wants, and with his party support, wants to ensure that you are back in basically an 1880 role for African Americans in America. If you are Latino American, they want to put you in concentration camps and deport you. If you are Asian American, they have blamed you for the virus, for economic disparity, and they want to hurt you. If you're Native American, they think that you don't have a right to be here in this country, even though it's your country. If you are Jewish American, they don't really love Jewish people. They're in this Gnostic Judaizer belief that they're going to replace the Jews in Israel with themselves. So it sounds nice to say they're pro-Israel, but they really ain't pro-Israel. And if you are multiracial, you are probably mixed with everything of what they are trying to take out. So at the end of the day, this is about your fundamental right to just live, just to be Black, just to be Latino, just to be Native American, just to be Jewish. Oh, and our Arabic brothers and Muslim brothers, good Lord, they want to blame that community specifically for the acts of a small few and ignore the radical white supremacist terrorists in their own camp. So if you want to be able in 2021 to feel good that no matter what's going on, you are respected and there's a path for you to have a normal life, if you don't vote, then I need to come see you. And it ain't gonna be a pretty conversation because you just got to go do your job. It's free, it's easy. We ain't got time for overthinking it. go vote for Joe, go vote for Democrats. Once we get past 2021, then we can have the intramural discussions on deeper policy. But right now, as my grandmothers used to always tell me, the main thing is the main thing. So, and right now we're actually at 73,330,795 people who have voted. 88% of Americans are registered, which means collectively in our communities of color that we're probably averaging anywhere from 75 to 95% registration based on different voting groups, with Native Americans being at the lowest end, but us as African Americans probably being in the high 80s across the country. There are disparities across different states, but we got the opportunity to impact and change a whole lot. Participation has got to happen.
So with that said, Eric, which your comments were very impactful. I'm shocked I haven't seen you on Let It Rip or anything like that, but your comments were very impactful and very important. I want to ask Mr. Luce this question about some of our Black men right now are still apprehensive about supporting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Some of them are gravitating towards Trump because of his platinum plan, his position on business. What's your thoughts on that? I don't know if you read the platinum plan or Lift Every Voice plan or anything, but when it comes to business, when you come to hear these Black men talk about, well, Trump is pretty strong on businesses. He's kept Black unemployment low for the past 3.5 years. Why not give the guy a second chance? What's your thoughts on that, my friend?
Well, I just I start with 200,000 plus dead Americans. I start with then go to the racial unrest that has existed under this administration. Then I go to the stand back and stand ready comment or any of the other comments. But even after all of that, I really, some of them still say, well, but what about Joe and his 1994 crime bill? And what about Kamala and all the brothers that she put in jail? And I go, let me go back to the 200,000 dead Americans, right? Do you not understand the impact that it's had on our community, right? And depending on the audience, right? This plan started long before Donald Trump came into play. Amy Coney Barrett is the result of a sister who was nominated by Obama, not getting the seat, and Amy Coney Barrett being appointed to that seat because they knew that was a stepping stone to the Supreme Court. So Amy Coney Barrett was selected and identified as an early choice early on. So I try and get brothers to understand that we need you to vote now. Right? And we need you to get engaged and to make a difference, because I go back to 10,107. If Detroit had just shown up in the last election, we probably wouldn't be where we are, right? That's the amazing thing. If 10,000 folks in the city of Detroit had shown up, we probably wouldn't have Donald Trump in the White House. But having said that, I just go to, the fact that your parents and grandparents, mama and them, died for the right to vote. You have to do that, right? I mean, there were people who laid their lives on the line for you to have the opportunity just to pull a lever. But I think we have to not only appeal to them now, but we got to get folks engaged in the midterm elections as well next time. Because these decisions that we're seeing take place now didn't just happen overnight. This was the result of a long calculated plan by what was then the Republican Party, which really doesn't exist anymore, which is now the Trump Party. This was a long plan to take us back at least 30 or 40 years. So I try and get brothers to recognize and realize where we are, and not get caught up in the hype when Ice Cube or somebody else comes up in the 11th hour with a plan, or when Donald Trump comes up in the 11th hour. You have to say, well, if you're just coming up with this platinum plan, what were we on before? The bronze plan for the last 3 years. I mean, I try and get brothers to think, because we have a tendency to get caught up in the flash without looking at the long game.
And your comments are spot on. And unfortunately, I tried to explain that to a lot of our young men who lean towards Donald Trump. You know, they feel that Obama didn't do enough for them, and Donald Trump have all these promises, $500 billion set aside for African Americans and all these things. And you know, we have to get past the rhetoric. And so my question to you, going back to Devontae, my question is, you know, with a few minutes we have left in this conversation, my question is, what's the way forward? We know we want to vote. We go past November 3rd, whether Biden is elected or Trump is reelected. What's the way forward for Black men in a city like Ecorse from your perspective? You being on the ground, you're engaged with the community, with the faith-based community. What do we still need to do as Black men to move a city like Ecorse forward?
Well, what we need to do is encourage and go to the doors and talk with the young people, because the young people what makes a difference in the community. If we don't do that, we're gonna be in a hall of shame, like the man said on the Fox News. So it's so important to go door to door and talk with the people. If you don't do that, nothing won't happen. They want to take stuff serious if you don't come to the doors. That's what matters when you come to the doors to the people. Because when the people see you coming to the doors, that's what's going to make a difference. They're going to say, "Oh, okay, cool. I like his idea, and I like his plan, and I like his platform. He's real about what he's saying, and he can't make any promises." But that's so important to go to the doors, and not only just go to the doors, go to the events that they have in the community. Not just only that, but just go to like church. If they're having church outside, it's important to just go to the churches too, because the churches will make a difference as well. And people want to see your face. When they see your face, that's what makes a difference. Not just only coming around voting time, but only coming around at all time, even when it's not election, even when it is election. They want to see your face. That's what's making a difference to the people, and that's what they want.
I'm gonna ask the same question to Councilman Chisholm. Is Councilman Chisholm here? Yeah, there
Yeah.
you are. I'm gonna ask you the same question from Inkster perspective, where we're at. What's the way forward past November 3rd with us on the ground?
Basically, piggybacking on what Councilman Sherrard said with outreach and encouragement. Keep the same energy that we have right now. Don't let it die once November 3rd hits. That's a problem that we have in our communities, is we ramp up all this voter participation. We have all this energy and gusto, and then after the election happens, whether we win or lose, we just drop it, and that's it. And then we wonder why nobody wants to participate anymore. We're not at the front door telling them, or in the churches telling them. For instance, I visit, the churches in my district and my community overall on off seasons of election cycles, just so they know that I'm there to figure out what's going on in those four walls and bring it back to the community, just like I do for the state representatives. Bring legislative updates to those communities at their different council meetings and bring their information from there back from the municipality back to the office. So, back we had the voter die thing. We had to take your souls to the poll. We had to keep those same conversations going throughout all the years. And we just have to pace ourselves, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. That's what I was told when I first got into office. And you can burn out quick. We can't burn out. And we can't let our Black men, especially our young Black men, burn out because of all of these worldly impacts that are hitting them, telling them to stop, don't do the right thing. It's easier to do the wrong thing.
Brother Mayo, chime in for me, please.
Yeah, real quick. This is the part that I feel like I get excited about the most. And the one thing I just want to, just caution us, I think we do it a lot. And I'm elected in the Democratic Party here, so the most I can do is to push back on myself and everybody else. But we look at this young man and all the folks who are actually either confused and now in mind, because I can hear we all have a consensus here today, like they are confused if they're trying to vote for Trump, or if they're considering voting for Trump, or they just crazy when they actually are fighting for him, advocating for him. The one thing is we, the majority of the Black community, have to find a way in our hearts to have room for other folks who don't think like us in the African American community. We have to understand that we don't own the Black thinking hat, and understand that there's a reason why these people are acting like this, because quite frankly, our party has failed us. I am not in the business of being a chairperson for this slave master over another slave master. Now, my party is the lesser of two evils. They're doing better. Let's give them another chance. I get tired of it. Because I mean, there's a reason why we have all white men all in Congress, all white men all always in the presidential election, the general election, that really don't care for us, but they just slightly better than the other a-hole on the other side. So, and we have to sometimes after the election get back together and be together like what we're doing right now. Let's do this on November 4th and November 5th, and the question is, how do we get together with the rest of our Black community and bring some of those folks on the far right, the Ice Cube in them, the whatever, the Charlemagne, whatever, you bring them in the room and talk to them. We need folks on both sides, quite frankly. We need to make sure we have folks on both sides, and we need to take into account some of the things that they're saying. Some of the things they're saying are so true about our side. Our side is not so clean, and we need to not let them get away to the next 4 years when they're going to tell us this is the most important election of your life. And I used to tired of hearing that, so they tune out when they hear that. My last thing is that we got to remember the United States of America, we are not what we claim we are. We are more of a terrorist nation than anybody else. We are the one that dropped the bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Innocent folks walking around today just another day because the country is in war, and an area that's far away from where combat is going on. We dropped an atomic bomb on them. You know what I mean? So we are the same folks who enslaved our people. You know what I mean? We are the same folks who've done all these things. We're a violent nation. So when we see all this, I don't know what to call them, like this crazies, with AKs and all that stuff, they're feeding off that flesh. We just came from Iraq when we killed so many people for no reason. WMD, we know that Bush should have been charged for starting a war in another country, but our guy, Democrat and the brother, let him off because he just got in presidency. Like, well, he told Eric Holder, let him get. We don't want to look like we Democrats going against Republicans. Nah, you serve the United States of America. You serve people. We got people like Eric Snowden, who's a white guy, but he's a whistleblower, and he's out there stuck in another country. I think he's from Ohio or somewhere here originally. But how many people talk about him? We gotta do what Dr. King said. To think about it again, like injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We have to think about that. There's injustice going around the globe because somebody is born under some soil in Iraq or in Haiti or something. It doesn't mean their soul is better than my soul. It doesn't mean that their body is better than my body. They have a head too. So my mind says, how can we start fighting for peace and justice around the globe? When we start doing that, it comes back home. It comes back home. What we do out there comes back here. Violence begets violence. We put violence around the world to make sure we get what we want, and we expect violence to not be on our streets. How dare we? So that we got to think about all that. Those are my two main points, and we got to make sure we start on the next day after the election and start fighting for those things.
Kendall, I know others want to chime in. We got about 4 minutes and with important announcements to make. And so I just want to make sure we do a rapid fire in the next 4 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna let Dr. Truman do a quick wrap up, and then we can move to those announcements. Go right ahead, Dr. Truman, real quickly.
Real quick, in our last conversation, we talked about coalition building, and in this conversation, we lifted up the fact that we need to connect with young people on an ongoing basis past the election. I'm going to challenge all of us and other Black men to build on what 100 Black Men's Foundation was, as well as our Pan-Hellenic organizations and other Greek letter organizations. Each one reach one, connect with a young man, make him your mentor, build him up, and make sure that you open up doors for him to go into those doors, and make sure that when you open up those doors, that you provide him with the supports to continue on his journey. And providing him with those supports are opening up your social, economic, political, and intellectual capital to make sure that he has everything that you have. And we have to, building on the Tony Montana philosophy, it ain't personal, it's business. And we have to stop taking it personal. And if we take it personal, we lose the battle. It's business.
All right. Look, listen, all I can say is this has been a very powerful discussion this morning. A lot of great ideas was exchanged, a lot of impactful statements, and really good thought process. Brothers, we have 6 days left before the election. Of course, it's next Tuesday. Let's get out the vote. Let's push our issues into the mainstream, and let's be accountable for one another in terms of that, so that we can continue moving past November 3rd. I really thank you all for being on this call this morning. I'm gonna turn it over to Lloyd Banks for these additional announcements.
Okay, thank you again, brothers. This was powerful, exciting. It's good to have this kind of dialogue. a few announcements, and hopefully we'll have, and we got to end right at 9. Hopefully we'll have a minute for a few announcements. So this 100-day campaign is about more than just election day and beyond. So after this election on November 3rd, our next meeting will be Wednesday, November 11th at 6 p.m. And a Kendall started us there, where we will be addressing other, what we consider to be pandemic issues, such as racial discrimination, police brutality, healthcare, and so much more, with the intentions of having policymakers on the calls. And we happen to have a couple on our call right now to make sure from an administration standpoint that whoever's reelected or elected, we start talking about nationally as well as locally what some of those issues are and demanding that we be heard. And so we're going to have that dialogue as well. The other thing is, the whole, we talked about this last time, is that the whole father and son legacy, or if you will, mentor mentee legacy piece, we want to make sure that plays up well in terms of video and messaging. And so you'll get reminders about uploading some information to capture either you with your son or you with your mentee, as well as encouraging others to do that so we can get some videos uploaded. The other thing is, you'll get a reminder too. You know, last time we said that whole saying about I'm a made man and I pledge to vote because nothing matters if nothing matters. We need to get that taped by each of you individually on your phones. And so if you can upload that, we'll send a reminder for that as well. Friday, there's a national discussion with all the other think tanks. And so it would be great that if you can join that call, we'll send you a reminder about the time for that. If you can join that call and be prepared to talk about some of the things we've been discussing, like I told you before, there are 8 other cities that these same conversations are happening with brothers similar to us in those cities. And so the national think tank will get together, and please, if you have time, join us on that call as well. So those are the big items. Wednesday, November 11th is the next meeting at 6 p.m. These reminders will go out into an email. Kai Deli and her team will continue to do that. And then we have 4 minutes for any announcements that brothers you would like to make as it relates to this and some things around voter education. You have the floor to do so.
Make sure you tell everybody, take their ballot, give it to their clerk, or drop it in a drop box, or take it to their poll, because unfortunately, we cannot trust the mail. It just is the exact way that it is. And do not have any fear of going to vote, regardless of how many of these radical Trump white supremacist terrorists show up at your poll sites. No fear. And honestly, maybe a few of us need to show up at their poll sites, since they want to make people, since they want to watch to ensure people are doing things the right way. It's just ridiculous that every year that side says that Black and brown and our white allies where we vote, we're somehow doing something wrong or doing something criminal every year, that we need to be watched. Come on, guys.
I had a quick comment that I wanted to make regarding the Affordable Care Act. So regardless of who wins on election day, November 11th, the Affordable Care Act, as we know, will be dismantled. And so I just want to encourage everyone on this call to become an advocate for your community. The biggest portion of the Affordable Care Act that covers a lot, the majority of those 20 million are expanded Medicaid. And that portion most likely will be completely gutted. Now, there is a protection in place due to the pandemic where a lot of people aren't losing their Medicaid. but we'll see a lot of change after that November 11th vote in the Supreme Court. So I would just encourage everyone in the community to become an advocate for the families, help them navigate the system. There's going to be a lot of fear. There's going to be a lot of misinformation going on out there as far as like open enrollment for the marketplace. So I would say if you're not very privy to how the Affordable Care Act works, just do as much research as you possibly can to become an advocate as well, and also to just to buffer what Dr. Truman said about charity care. That is going to be extremely important. Charity care, county health plans, they're going to be right back in the forefront for offering insurance for indigent populations. So please become an advocate and help our community members that are covered under the Affordable Care Act to navigate the system.
Yeah, I just want to quickly lift up again the take a look at the event taking place tonight. Even if you can't be on, flush it to your networks, because they will have opportunity to have Q&A, not only with the election protection specialist, but also Assistant Secretary Hester Wheeler around voting. If you need any lit or anything like that, please get with me. And then we do have election protection going on, trainings going on to be certified Friday and Sunday. And then I also want to finish up by saying the vote, but vote the entire ballot, because we also need to flip the Senate. If we do one action, we saw one action done in 2008, 2010. We saw the whole thing flip over to no. So if we want to have real progress, as Truman talked about earlier, we got to have the right people in the right places and in the right seats to be able to get at the policy. And then, as Brother Mayo spoke to, just like they said when Obama was elected, we're going to make sure you're one-term president starting day one. We got to be right, stay vigilant on this ongoing to continue to build these coalitions and alliances to do all the things that we just talked about and lifted up.
Thank you, Brother Murphy. And on that note, brothers, it's 9 a.m. Thank you very much for taking this hour to have this dialogue. Have a good rest of the day.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.